Honored colleagues, guests from Asia, America, Australia and Europe and the UK and many places in Germany, I'm very honored to be able to welcome you here today. I'm very happy that all of you could make it, that you took many hours on trains and planes to come to Bonn and join us for our two-day conference, Crossroads Studies, Mobilities, Immobilities, and the issue of positionality for rethinking area studies. It's a long title. Organized by Crossroads Asia and the Center for Development Research here in Bonn. My name is Anna-Katharina Hornidge. I'm the scientific coordinator of Crossroads Asia and since August also the director of the social science department at the Center for Development Research. Ladies and gentlemen, when we look back onto the summer of 2014 and some of the events that held and actually still are holding our world in motion, Crossroads Asia's research focus on everyday practices of people between Eastern Iran and Northern India, between the Aral Sea and Western China, and the focus on how these everyday practices inherently question existing categories of spatial and social organization seem even so more relevant. I'm here thinking of the events of renegotiating the political border between Russia and the Ukraine. I'm also thinking of the activities of the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, signifying the relevance of linking the assessment of political border negotiations with sociocultural, ethnicity and religion-based boundary making. The recent appearance of Daesh or Islamic State graffiti all over Pakistan is just the most recent indicator of how symbols travel, and this links again with Crossroads Asia's conflict and mobility focus. When we look at Africa, I'm thinking of the recent outbreak of the Ebola virus in Western Africa, a virus spreading along the main transport routes and nodes, being geographically as well as socially highly mobile, and through its mobility redefining the world region of Western Africa. On a smaller scale, the Ebola virus leads to the compartmentalization of cities into affected and non-affected parts, a tightening of border controls, but also to the drawing of new cognitive boundaries. This I could experience myself when coming back from Ghana, a country without any registered cases of Ebola. Yet when I arrived back in Germany, the German media had already assured that in the eyes of my neighbors and friends and closest family, I was coming back from the Ebola region. In line with our research within the competence network of Crossroads Asia, these events indicate that different mobilities, just as much as immobilities, and thus different types of borders and boundaries, are negotiated, take on shape, come into being, or are deconstructed again in and as a consequence of human communicative interaction. The everyday practices of livelihood provision in the border regions between Pakistan and India, Iran and Afghanistan, but also at the verge of sociocultural boundaries and modes of social differentiation and ordering in Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, suggest that some of the geographically fixed categories that our world operates in are increasingly characterized by degrees of dynamism that transcend territorial fixity. This holds true for the conventional world regions, identified after the Second World War, and I'm now particularly thinking of Central and South Asia within the Crossroads context. Yet the above referred to events additionally reshape the possibilities of nation-states to act as territorially fixed units. Ebola, but also regional jihadism, does not stop at political borders. The competence network Crossroads Asia, funded by the Area Studies Initiative of the German Ministry of Education and Research, started off in March 2011 with the aim to question the validity of the conventional world regions of Central and South Asia as defining bases of area studies, for area studies, as they are conceptualized and organized and taught at German universities up to today. The increasing mobility of people, goods, and ideas along Asia's crossroads, so the network's underlying assumption, does no longer justify a division of the world in territorially fixed areas, defined by certain character traits to be found on the inside, but instead demands for concepts of area that take these dynamisms into account. For doing so, and with a broader aim of rethinking conventional area studies approaches, the network chose a novel approach with Norbert Elias' figurations at its conceptual center, bringing together area studies, expertise from Central and South Asia, as well as Iranian studies, with a number of social sciences and humanities, namely geography, political science, sociology, linguistics, and social anthropology. Today and tomorrow we aim to bring some of the empirical research conducted by the network members together with the empirical and conceptual as well as methodological debates on the rethinking of area studies from Asia just as much as from other world regions. And I'm very happy to be able to announce here today that by doing so we do not celebrate the end of Crossroads Asia as a funded project, but instead we celebrate taking the step from the mainly empirical research-oriented first phase of the project to a more analysis and synthesizing and transfer-oriented second phase, starting from January 2015 for another 2 years. Drawing on the rich empirical research of our first 4 years, we will now take our original focus on the themes conflict, migration and development further and move processes of social and geographical mobility and immobility and the interactive negotiation of political, sociocultural and ethnic boundaries into the center of our reflections. Elias' conception of figurations will thus be extended to bring in a new facet to the communicative construction of reality, which is of particular relevance to the construction of social and geographical spaces in and also through processes of mobility. Social actions and interactions are becoming more significant now against the background of local perceptions of reality and their role in the communicative construction of space, as our focus shifts to a more in-depth analysis of first the dynamics of different types of mobility and immobility, second the negotiation of boundaries and borders and processes of boundary making and boundary weakening. In addition, we plan to continue, of course, to contribute towards a fundamental rethinking of the central premises of area studies, as well as to focus attention on the vital importance of researchers in this field reflecting on their own socio-spatial and disciplinary positionality. The separate research components will each contribute to the development of the Crossroads perspective as interdisciplinary research paradigm, and this with regard to 3 pillars. One is the conceptual framework relating to the figurative construction of space, which is of relevance for area studies both at the meta level and in connection with the primary research, the empirical research. The second pillar forms a methodological approach called the follow the figuration, and the third pillar focuses on processes of continuous epistemological and ethical reflection. The notion of Crossroads Studies, that you find also in the title of our conference here today, therefore refers not only to the study of different types of mobility and immobility along some of Asia's crossroads, as well as the conscious reflection on the researcher's own position in this process, but in addition it also refers to the many negotiation processes, the boundary drawing and the boundary weakening that we are all involved in everyday life of us as researchers in interdisciplinary teams at the crossroads between area study disciplines and systematic disciplines. The German, but in Chicago living, sociologist Karin Knorr-Cettina speaks of the disunity of science that causes these little frictions and fractions between different disciplines and interdisciplinary research areas. Yet she also underlines the crucial importance of exactly this diversity of knowledge-producing systems, and in her words, the manufacturing systems from which truth effects arise for living with the increasing speeds and qualitative forms of change that our world is currently experiencing and that we live with. Let me here just remind all of us of the sheer amount of emails entering through or going through our inboxes every day, of our little smartphones that, and their importance in managing everyday life. These changes, the mobility and immobility patterns that we study, the increasing border and boundary negotiations that trickle into so many aspects of our lives, are what the sociologists Ulrich Beck and Anthony Giddens assess as the consequences of the first modernity. Consequences that we do not fully oversee and can hardly control anymore. Here, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe's poem, The Sorcerer's Apprentice, comes to mind. In the old sorcerer's absence, the apprentice, enjoying his freedom of being home alone, experiments with his ability to call some of the spirits, but neglecting whether he can also send them back again. Well, most of you will know this poem well, but still allow me to read out a small section of it. Here he comes again with water. Now I throw myself upon you, and the sharpness of my axe I will test, O spirit, on you. Well, a perfect hit. See how he is split. Now there's hope for me, and I can breathe free. Woe is me, both pieces come to life anew. Now to do my bidding, I have servants too. Help me, O great powers, please, I'm begging you. And they're running wet and wetter, get the stairs, the rooms, the hall. What a deluge, what a flood. Lord and Master, hear my call. Ah, here comes the Master. I have need of thee. From the spirits that I called, Sir, deliver me. Well, in the poem, the old sorcerer does indeed step in and calm the spirits called. The uncontrollable consequences of our own doing, nevertheless, the increasing mobility of ideas, belief systems, goods, people, and viruses across vast geographical but also social distances, and at a seemingly ever-increasing speed, are not likely to be controlled by a wise sorcerer stepping in. Instead, they make the multiple ways human life on Earth organizes and sustains itself increasingly unpredictable for us. We answer these challenges by becoming even more mobile, socially, geographically, mentally, often without even taking note of the immobilities that come with these mobilities at the same time. We innovate more and more rapidly, neglecting the fact that with every new knowledge produced also the non-knowledge and our hunches of how much more yet unknown is out there increases. Today and tomorrow we have come together here in Bonn with the aim to take Norcetina's call for diversity as crucial basis for stretching these existing boundaries of scientific and yet contemporarily useful and applicable knowledge production a bit further by bringing together researchers from many different disciplines and with a wide range of regional expertise. This endeavor is based on the belief and on the trust that this diversity, us listening to each other's truth effects, will help us to live with the spirits we called. I'm therefore very honored and very happy to be able to welcome you today, and I'm looking forward to 2 days of rich discussion on mobilities and immobilities, on borders and boundaries, on knowledge production in the in-betweens, on area studies, mid-range concepts, and the teaching thereof. Thank you for coming. And before I will now have the honor to introduce you to our keynote speaker, I want to do one thing first. And this is to thank those that make this conference possible. First of all, a conference always requires some financial support. And here I want to explicitly thank the Federal Ministry of Germany of Education and of Research, and here the Area Studies funding line. Thank you very much for the generous support that makes this conference possible. I also want to thank the Projektträger, Dr. Rolf Geserik, who is with us today, for being very always approachable, always contactable on all questions, all nitty-gritty detailed questions on, that are necessary and that come up in the organization of a conference. And then, of course, the conference requires a lot of work in the background. And here I want to thank a whole range of people, and especially Mrs. Nelly Nokala. I don't know where she is, she's busy outside, as always. A big thank you. It's incredible how well organized she pushed all the administrative, all the organizational aspects of this conference forward. Thank you very much. I thank Mrs. Catherine Reynolds, Mrs. Vashma Pomand, I thank Yeshin Pakal, I thank Jenny Stötzel and Florian Schmidt for all the many things, lists, name tags, etc. that were used and organized. And then I thank the organizing committee on the content side. Here I'm thanking particularly Dr. Katja Mielke and Dr. Epifania Amuadare. It would not have been possible without all of them.